The Principal Deputy Director for the Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency, also known as DPAA, here today, Fern Sumter Winbush. Prior to hearing from her, I'm going to ask that Kevin Grantier lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and then immediately afterwards, I'm going to ask that Donald Peak lead us in prayer. Kevin?
Please rise. Number and salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow. Heavenly Father, we ask you to please bless this group of people. If there's any family members in here, I ask that you bless them. Any family members throughout the United States, we ask that you bless those families. As you know, when they have family get-togethers, there's always a seat that is empty. I know nothing about that because I don't have anyone like that. But I can just imagine what goes through the minds of people that do not know anything about the relative, mother, father, aunt, uncle, brother, sister. So we just ask that you bless all of them. I would also ask that you soften the hearts of all the foreign leaders that will not allow us to come into their country to look for remains. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated. I'm now going to ask Tom Commit to read our committee's mission, as this is going to give us some context and foundation of how our organization fits into the effort of POWs and MIA. Tom?
Good afternoon, everybody. I can finally get a chance to use the microphone. The POW-MIA Committee is committed to achieving the fullest possible accounting for United States personnel still held captive, missing, or unaccounted for from all of our nation's wars, which include bringing the remains of our fallen comrades home and repatriating any living United States POWs. Our mission is carried forward by, number one, demanding the immediate release of any POW and obtaining the most up-to-date information and fullest accountability of those that remain MIA. Number two, preserving the legacy and memory of former, current, and future POWs and those missing in action to ensure that the inhumane experiences are calculated as part of the cost of war and remain part of the national consciousness. Number three, creating awareness of POW-MIA experience to include its lasting effects on families of those held captive who remain unaccounted for. Number four, engaging in local activities such as meetings, dedications, and ceremonies relative to POW and MIA concerns, brings awareness, greater understanding, and knowledge to all. Number five, increase the awareness and responsiveness surrounding POW-MIA accountability and recovery. Number six, supporting efforts to provide adequate resources for POW-MIA initiatives. And number seven, encouraging DAV departments and chapters to support POW and MIA initiatives. Thank you.
Thank you, team. It's an honor to be a part of this interim committee. And these three gentlemen have all served our nation proudly and continue to do so here in the DAV. Tom served and retired after 21 years of service in the United States Air Force and lives in the great state of Nebraska. He's a department service officer. Tom has recently helped to restore an 8th Cavalry helicopter that was an aircraft used in Vietnam during the war. The restoring helicopter team was able to locate 5 members of the original crew members that operated that helicopter and reunited them with that aircraft after 50-plus years. We were able to see that exhibit at the recent DPAA family member update held in Omaha. With Tom's background in both military and civil service, he takes pride in being able to give back and help those in need as a department service officer. This allows him to help those veterans with financial, emotional, and necessary daily needs. Great job, Tom. Donald served from 1970 to 1973 in the United States Army, served in NATO and Europe. Donald comes to us from Indiana, was actually the commissioner of the Indiana Department of Veterans Affairs from 1989 to 1997. Donald is the chapter commander of the John H. Weiss Chapter 52, and if I've done my math right, has done so for 18 years. Donald holds a great deal of accolades and memberships in the veteran community. He's been very active within the DAV over the years and is committed to our mission. Job well done, Donald. Kevin is the current Department DAV commander for the Department of Montana, Big Sky Country, and a 10-year veteran of the United States Air Force and a Gulf War veteran. Kevin was injured very badly during his service. After his service, Kevin felt an obligation to continue his service and went on and served as a DAV National Service Officer for 21 years. Kevin has served in many roles at the DAV national level, and I'm always honored when he attends meetings with my home state of South Dakota. You're a great leader, Kevin. Thank you. Lastly, I'd like to bring attention to someone that would rather just stay in the back and not want any recognition. Principal Deputy Director brought him out this morning, but I'm going to bring him out here too. I'd be remiss if I did not recognize Justin Hart. Justin is an Assistant National Service Director, but he is the real leader of this committee. Justin is an Army veteran and combat veteran of Iraq, a recipient and member of the Military Order of Purple Heart. Justin was a young soldier in the U.S. Army in 2003. Please turn off your phones. He was traveling down a dirt road in Iraq when an explosion rocked his Humvee. His Humvee ran over an anti-tank mine, which caused him to get blown out of the Humvee, and another soldier was severely burned. Justin's leadership, mentorship, and more importantly, friendship is the cornerstone in key relationships with our stakeholders in Washington, D.C., our partners such as DPAA. Justin has the additional duty as the DAV and represents the DAV nationally on a daily basis on POW-MIA issues and does so very well and professionally. I thank my team for all their efforts. A job well done. Please join me in a round of applause for their efforts. This year has some significant recognitions with the commemoration of the end of Vietnam War 50 years ago. Additionally, this year marks the 30th anniversary of reestablishing diplomatic ties between the United States and Vietnam, as well as the 40th anniversary of the first American recovery mission for those missing in action from the Vietnam War. I hope you will all reach out in your communities on Friday, September 19th to host a ceremony in recognition of the 2025 National POW-MIA Recognition Day. Our team has had the great fortune to meet with the Principal Deputy Director at our midwinter conference, where she was able to give us insight on DPAA operations. She briefed us this morning that 196 service members already this year have been identified this year. And you can go to their website if you're not familiar with it, and you can see their individual cases and see what efforts go to bring those folks back. I do have some of those cases printed off up here in that binder up here if you'd like to see them before you leave. Mrs. Fern Sumter Winbush was selected on October 27, 2015 to serve as the Principal Deputy Director for the Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA. In support of the Director, DPAA, she is responsible for leading the agency in formulating policy, overseeing business development, and increasing outreach initiatives to achieve the agency's goal of providing families and the nation with the fullest possible accounting of missing personnel from past conflicts. Mrs. Winbush hails from Boston, Massachusetts, where she was a 1989 honor graduate of the University of Massachusetts and a distinguished military graduate of the Suffolk University's Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC program in Boston. She began her military career as a private first class in the Army Reserves in 1983. Her service continued upon her transfer to the Massachusetts Army National Guard until her active duty appointment as a military intelligence second lieutenant in 1990. Over the next 25 years, she held numerous positions of increased responsibility in Germany, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Korea, and the Netherlands, culminating with a deployment to Operation Enduring Freedom in Kabul, Afghanistan, and subsequently as the commander of Joint Base Meyer-Henderson Hall in Arlington, Virginia. Mrs. Winbush retired from the Army after 31 years of military service in January 2015. Her education includes a Bachelor of Science degree with honors in Business Management Information Systems from the University of Massachusetts, a Master of Science degree in National Resource Strategy from the Industrial College of the Armed Forces, Command and General Staff College, Military Intelligence Officer Basic and Advanced courses, and Airborne School. Her awards and decorations include the Legion of Merit, 1st Oak Leaf Cluster, Defense Meritorious Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, 6th Oak Leaf Cluster, Army Commendation Medal, Joint Service Achievement Medal, 1st Oak Leaf Cluster, and the Army Achievement Medal. Mrs. Winbush is married and has one son. And most importantly, for me, she's a DAV Life member. I knew it. I would make everything again.
Thank you. We were just laughing because, whenever I speak with DAV members, I get a little annoyed when they forget to say that I'm a DAV member. So he remembered this time, so maybe I'll give him a coin on the way out. Good afternoon. It is so awesome to be in front of you again. As he mentioned, I really enjoy talking to this committee, especially during the midwinter conference, because DAV has always been involved with soldier issues, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guards, men and women. And I can't think of a mission like the one that we're responsible for in DPAA that is closer to what the DAV stands for: taking care of soldiers, never leaving a comrade behind. So I'm not going to do all of the same remarks that I did this morning. One, because it was fast and swift. I only had 10 minutes, and so now I'm going to be able to relax a bit and go into a little bit more detail, especially around the area of the impact of the budget on our mission next year. I know that you all are interested in that. But before I get there, I want to make sure that I lay a good foundation so that you understand exactly how impactful the $20 million cut and the reduction of 26 positions in our agency will have on us. Go to the next slide, please. Is the video next? So before I get started, the best way to tell this story and give you a good foundation from which we're going to have a discussion is to show you our agency video. It is available for your view on YouTube. You can just search DPAA agency video and it'll come up. You can share it with your friends. You can share it with your individual DAV organizations back home. And it's only about 9 minutes. It's narrated by Kevin Costner, and it goes into detail how we do our mission, starting from research and investigations all the way to how we make identifications. So I'm going to stop talking there. We're going to play the video, and then I'll come back. Thanks.
We write no last chapters. We close no books. We put away no final memories. An end to America's involvement in Vietnam cannot come before we have achieved the fullest possible accounting of those missing in action.
Why keep searching? The answer is simple. You never leave a fallen American behind. The mission of the Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency, or DPAA, is to provide the fullest possible accounting for our missing personnel to their families and their nation. Strategically located in Arlington, Virginia, with major facilities at Joint Base Pearl Harbor, Hickam, Hawaii, and Offutt Air Force Base, Nebraska, the more than 600-person defense agency is jointly manned by soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and Department of Defense civilians with specialized skills. Researching, recovering, identifying, and ultimately returning an individual to their family begins with analysis and investigation. The DPAA experts begin the search by studying all known information regarding the circumstances of each loss. Historians and analysts gather information from U.S. veterans, foreign witnesses, archival records, and other sources. They then create a case file for each unaccounted for American. This file may include historical records, official correspondence, maps, photographs, daily activity logs, and medical and personnel records of the missing person. These files are continually updated until an identification is made.
Once the research has been done here, and we get the command's approval, we send out small teams. It could be up to 2 people, it could be a 10-person team, conducting interviews at a villager's house, at a district office, or a combination of going to the site first and then conducting the interviews on site.
Once all available information is analyzed, a decision can be made to disinter individuals buried as unknown or conduct field investigations. During a typical investigation mission, personnel interview potential witnesses, conduct on-site reconnaissance, and survey terrain for safety and logistical concerns. Teams also try to generate new leads that may result in future recoveries. The main goal of the investigation is to obtain enough information to correlate or connect a particular site with one or more missing Americans. If enough on-site evidence is found, the site will be recommended for recovery and excavation. Recovery sites range in size from a few square meters, such as in individual burials, to areas larger than football fields for aircraft crashes. DPAA may hire as many as 100 local workers to help with the excavation process.
This job has so many benefits. For me personally, it's an opportunity to serve the country, but also our fighting forces and kind of contribute to that as well. Professionally, it's just an incredible challenge to get to work in all the countries where we work, to travel to these amazing sites, to work with the local villagers and local officials, and just have the opportunity to give somebody some answers after decades of waiting to know what happened to their loved one, and maybe just wrestling with the grief that lack of information and lack of answers brings. We have the chance to resolve that for them, and that's just an incredible opportunity.
Investigative and recovery missions in search of missing Americans take DPAA personnel to distant, remote, and often dangerous locations all over the globe. Rice paddies in Southeast Asia, areas on the Korean Peninsula, 16,000-foot mountaintops in the Himalayas, and underwater sites off the coast of Papua New Guinea. And we still continue to search the battlefields of World War II throughout Europe. After a successful recovery, all evidence is then transported to the DPAA laboratories. Once they've arrived in the lab, the painstaking process of identification begins. This is the final step of the mission, leading to the return of an individual. In many of the cases, an important step in the identification process is DNA analysis, which is accomplished by cutting a bone sample that is sent to the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory. One of the challenges DPAA faces today is the lack of reference samples from family members of those still unaccounted for. Any person who is a relative of an unaccounted for American is encouraged to contact their service casualty office to ensure there is a DNA reference sample on file for that service member. DPAA makes an identification when all available evidence, remains, artifacts, and historical documents point to the same person. The ID process can take anywhere from a few months to several years to complete. Any unresolved cases are kept open with the hope that new evidence will be found or new technologies will be developed to make a future identification possible. Once an American has been identified, their remains are returned to their family through their respective service casualty office. They are returned home with full military honors and given the respect they earned through their service and sacrifice for their country.
Oh, as a family member, this agency, to me, is doing phenomenal work, and in a very personal way, because when somebody loses somebody like my father, and you really don't know what the story is for 70 years, and then you find an agency that knows about him and keeps his memory alive, keeps the mission alive to try to find him. It's very meaningful in a very personal way, because it means you're not just doing this yourself alone. You have a whole body of people who are concerned about finding your dad and bringing him home.
That says something about how we honor our dead, particularly those who have served this nation. I'm very grateful to all of the DPAA and related agencies and the military in general, as they've pursued this in our government, and for our citizens, because they think it's an important enough mission to continue. And the way we value life, and very few nations, I don't think any other nation to this degree does this.
Which, makes me proud to be an American.
I just wanted to yell openly to everybody out there, he's home, he's home. I couldn't believe it. And when I went up and touched his name, I thought, you're home, you're home. It's unbelievable. I'm glad I live in the United States of America and that we have this attitude. Leave no man behind. We're so fortunate. I want you to know, and I know from my own experience, that if something's happened to you, we will be looking for you.
The men and women of the Defense POW-MIA Accounting Agency are united in their effort to recover and return as many of our missing personnel as possible. One more patriot return, one more family that now has answers. One more step in fulfilling our nation's promise.
So when I think about the warrior ethos, that's it right there. What DPAA is responsible for as the sole agency in the Department of Defense, it gets no better than what you just saw in that video. We are about 700 strong, half military, half civilian. We work crazy hours because the cases that we work involve soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, one Coast Guardsman, and a couple of civilians trying to find them. And their cases right now are the hard cases. All of the easy cases have already been done, and they've been returned to their families. So now we're putting in an extra effort to get it done, to get after this mission. You saw this slide earlier, so I won't go through the numbers. The numbers are large. The long pole in the tent is that we estimate that about 38,000 is the number we can actually account for. Now, when Congress stood us up in 2015, they told the director then, actually they told the Secretary of Defense, because there was no director, but they told the Secretary of Defense that you're going to build an agency responsible for this mission, led by a civilian, and you're going to do a couple of things. You're going to provide the fullest possible accounting. You're going to ensure that you build the capability and the capacity to account for at least 200 individuals. Back then, our predecessor organizations were very challenged with making identifications, and on an average, they'd make anywhere from 50, 70 IDs a year. And of course, the families were not happy. Congress also told the Secretary, in addition, you will build a case file for every missing individual. And to do that, you will establish an IT system, case management system, to share and digitize all of those documents so that not only internal to the agency, your historians, your analysts, your researchers, your field ops personnel have the ability to share this digital information, but also other government organizations that are working in this mission space will also have access. And so we have built that case management system, and we have shared it with the service casualty offices. They love it, as well as the Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory. In 2015, you heard me mention this earlier today, we hit our 10th year anniversary. And so we were able to check off all of those requirements that Congress told the Secretary at the time to achieve. We hit our first 200 identification in 2017. And we are now at the point where, because we received a plus-up in our budget that included not only money, but personnel in fiscal year 2023, we have far exceeded those goals, and this year will be even better. But that's because, not only were we able to hire historians, researchers, planners for our mission operators, as well as grow our partnership. That's the other thing that Congress told us to do. They said, you will build a public-private partnership program in the agency so that you can expand the agency's capability through organizations external to DOD that have the ability to either provide resources, conduct research, or go to the field. And so we now have 115 strong partners, both US and overseas, that help us with this mission space. And so we've been able to get after this mission in an amazing way. In addition to what DPAA does, we have a partner in the Armed Forces Medical Examiner, Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory out in Dover. They have both a current day office, which is where current day deaths come in, but they also have a past conflict section. And at the same time, their lab director out there at AFDIL, Dr. Tim McMahon, was pursuing a plus-up in his laboratory funding at the same pace that DPAA pursued that funding. Fortunately, he received it just like we did. So between 2023 and now, AFDIL has not only been able to help us with identifications, because that's the lab where we take the remains that we get from the field, whether it be through field operations or through disinterments. We prep those remains, we cut a piece of the bone, and we will send it to AFDIL, Dr. McMahon and his team. They are the ones that actually compare the bone to the family reference samples that we get from the families. In addition to helping us increase the number of identifications because his budget grew, so that meant that he was able to have a larger contract and then also had the ability to bring on more people. He also had the ability to really work on the science behind making identifications. And this year, they were able to bring online a new process called SNPs. And SNPs is a process that allows them to increase the number of identifications, because instead of having to have a close relative of the individual that you're looking for, they are able to go out 3 and 4 generations from the center of that family tree, which is huge. Because of that, we assess that we're going to be able to make 20% more identifications because of that. And that's why when you heard me mention earlier that we are up to 196 already for this fiscal year, that's a game changer. And so we have been looking forward to what FY26 and beyond will hold for us, because right now, between DPAA, AFDIL, and the services, we're on a trajectory that we thought was unstoppable. And I think you can assess why that sentiment really is no longer there. Go to the next slide, please. FY 2025, this year, is the second year since we received that budgetary increase. And so our operations increased in pace with that. So for this year, we've had 56 investigation teams in the field. What investigation teams do is they go out based upon what the historians and the researchers have gathered about the circumstance of the loss and the location. They will go to that country and start conducting interviews and inquiries and go to the site to try to take samples to figure out whether or not that truly is the place that we ought to look. Once the investigation team determines that we've got that correct location, we will then, at some point down the road, send a recovery team. Rarely is it done in the same year. So usually it's the next fiscal year, because especially with Vietnam War, those operations are very expensive, and the host nations won't let us stay in country longer than anywhere between 120 to 180 days. So we have to leave and then come back the next year. Totally inefficient, but that's the way they operate, and we have to adhere to that. Once the recovery missions are done, that's when we hopefully will get remains, and we've been hugely successful. Vietnam War is our #1 priority, and that's largely because that's the war that we have the most information about, right? It's the one that's been most recent. Also, our witnesses are still alive. Our veterans are still alive, able to give us information about the location where operations took place. But time is not on our side, not only because witnesses are getting older, memories are fading, but in South Asia, Southeast Asia, the soil is very acidic, and so it is eating away at the remains. The remains that we're getting out of Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, you can hold in the palm of your hand. But we can make an identification from a tooth, so it doesn't take a lot because of the science that I talked about. So over this particular FY, we continue to send teams. In fact, right now, today, we have over 200 individuals, both from DPAA and our partner organizations, conducting operations in the field. So hopefully, those missions will be fruitful, and we will be able to bring more remains into our laboratory. So, with all of that said, here's where the impact comes in. Do your math in your head and deduct 25% from those missions. That's the impact. That means 25% less remains in our laboratory, 25% less boots on the ground, which is impactful. We probably won't feel the impact of that until about FY '27 and '28, because we have remains in the laboratory that are being processed right now. And these missions from this year, I'm certain, because they already have, will produce remains and we'll be able to accession them. So we'll be able to still make some IDs for probably the next 2 years. But at some point, the fact that we would have decreased our operations and the fact that right now, anyone who leaves, and we just lost our odontologist, so not only do we use DNA, but we use teeth as well to make identifications. It is a multi-evidence process, so we take multiple lines of evidence to try to make an ID in addition to DNA. So when we lost our odontologist, that was a huge hit. Yes, we have other odontologists uniformed. This individual was a civilian. So our uniform odontologist, I think of which we have 2, that's great. But we just lost 33% of our odontologists by that one leaving that we cannot replace. Making IDs using dental has been a huge, huge plus for us, so that's going to be impacted. In addition, we're not going to be able to hire any body to fill our current vacancies that haven't been filled. So we have been doing a great job filling our positions, and we were almost at 100%. We were at 98.5, almost 99%, and then the cuts hit. So going forward, we can only do what we can do. If we don't have the personnel, we don't have the funds to go into the different countries, the thing that we will really focus on is we will keep Southeast Asia, the Vietnam War, as our #1 priority, but then we will also continue to work on our relationships with the host nations, right? Because they also have been in our planning process and had been anticipating robust operations in their host nations. So right now there hasn't been any blowback from that. So I don't want you to think that the host nations are taking us to task on that challenge. They're not. They've been very understanding. In fact, on Thursday and Friday of last week, we held our Korean War, Cold War annual government briefing in DC for 400 plus family members who descended on us. And we had a 2-day event where we talked about our mission, and we also talked to them about their particular cases. And we had individuals from both Korea, and then we had individuals from Vietnam that helped us with that event. Funding is always a challenge. So I would say that from a host nation perspective, I think the risk is low. The main risk is not being able to conduct our operations as planned. In addition, DPAA is not the only one that's feeling the cuts. The Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory, Dr. McMahon and his crew are feeling the same. And then the third partner that I did not mention was the service casualty offices. So Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine, Coast Guard, they've also undergone cuts. So when DPA makes an identification, we contact the service casualty office. Let them know, actually we have our own medical examiner, lets them know that we've positively ID'd an individual. They have the responsibility for making a phone call within 24 hours to the family, and I think actually it's 72, to the family to let them know that DPAA has made an identification. Well, they've already started experiencing the impact of our increased IDs and their loss of personnel. to the point where they now have a backlog. So there are IDs we have sitting in our lab where the families haven't been notified yet. That will only get worse, especially as we complete 2025 and we continue to add to that backlog. So we are hoping to be able to partner with the services we've offered as well, even with our shortages. Hey, we will help you make the phone call. We can't go deliver the actual briefing to the family. That's a service responsibility, but we certainly can make the phone calls. And so the other thing that lags behind is when we make IDs and the families don't get notified, our website lags behind. So there are IDs that we've made from last year that we haven't posted to the website because the family hasn't been notified. You would think that wouldn't be a big deal, but you would be surprised at how closely our families monitor our website, and they will know if a number decreases, they know where we've gone. They don't want to find out that their loved one is sitting in the lab identified and they haven't received a call. So the challenge and impact is real. Go to the next slide, please. Here's a little bit of background about where we stand with regard to our nations, and these are the big muscle movements of our mission. As I said, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, huge cooperation. In fact, I've already talked about Vietnam, Cambodia. We are sponsoring 2 of their archaeologists to attend the University of Hawaii, where they are getting archaeological skills to not only work in their country on their losses, but also when we send teams to Cambodia, these scientists will also be able to help. So that relationship is those relationships are very, very strong. Our next strongest, if not stronger, relationship is with South Korea. The Republic of Korea has been fantastic. Their Ministry of Defense Agency for KIA Recovery and Identification, MACRI, has modeled their organization after DPAA. There are many DPAA. We send our scientists to their laboratory to teach them how to do field work, how to make identifications. And this relationship has been ongoing with MACRI for over 10, it's almost 15 years now. Very, very tight. In fact, MACRI has actually recovered American remains. Because they are trained in how we conduct the science in our laboratories, they are able to give us a call, and we send a scientist to South Korea to confirm that the individual is likely an American. And they've been pretty good, pretty accurate. So that relationship is strong. When we talk about North Korea, not so much. There's still a lot of back and forth about denuclearization. No matter how we try to separate denuclearization with field operations in North Korea, that seems to be one of the largest challenges. You may recall in 2018, when DPAA, the US received 55 boxes of remains, then President Trump and Chairman Kim met, agreed to return those 55 boxes. We discovered that not only did we have 55 boxes, but there were over 250 individuals represented across those boxes because the remains were severely commingled. To date, we've identified over 110 out of those boxes. Secretary Hegseth, when he visited our laboratory earlier this year, announced the 100th ID from the 55 boxes. You can watch the video on DoDNet where he stated that not only is our mission important and the work that we do important, but it's also our nation's noble responsibility. I'll let that resonate for a moment. In addition, in those 55 boxes, There were also Republic of Korea personnel, and we've repatriated about 90 ROK soldiers back to South Korea. We've had pretty good cooperation with Papua New Guinea, Solomon Islands, Oceania. However, with Kiribati, Tarawa, where the Marines fought so heavily, hard, and many of them died during World War II, we have not been able to get back into Kiribati for over 2 years now. We're trying to figure out exactly how we can get back in, but the government, since COVID, has been very insulary and has not opened their borders to us and our partner. China, you might be surprised to know that we've had quite a number of missions over the last year in China. We had 3 missions to date where we actually recovered remains and have made an identification. And we have boots on the ground right now in China, conducting an investigation or inquiry into 3 cases that were lost along the border of China and North Korea. We never thought that we would ever get back to that area, not in the near term anyway, but the Chinese have been extremely cooperative. So we're appreciative that they, unlike Kiribati, has separated the issues, the political issues that they are experiencing, separated those from the important humanitarian mission of finding our fallen and bringing them home. So I'm hopeful that we will be met with good results. In fact, I don't know if it's timing or what, but it seems like I'm always speaking to the DAV group when I've got a secret to tell. So I can't give you the details, but I will just say that those 3 missions, or that mission now ongoing in China, is very promising. So I would see us being able to go back in and recover remains in the future. Maybe. And then lastly, no real cooperation any longer with Russia, aside from the fact that they have allowed us to reinstitute our contract that we have. We have a contractor working in Russia in the archives getting information for us about not just all 4, the 3 wars, but also the Cold War as well. There were a lot of Cold War losses that were highly classified on both sides, and so we have a challenge with finding and actually getting to those sites, especially the ones that are off the coast of Russia. So when will we ever be able to do those missions? Who knows? Next slide. And then this, I think, is one of my favorite cases to talk about. It's not completely resolved, but the incident involving the 1043rd Radar Evaluation Squadron, or the loss of Pupati, was one of the first missions that I learned about when I arrived here in DPAA. In fact, it was a mission set that family members personally would come up to me and beg me to send them back. I served as the acting director from mid-2016 until Director McKeag, my savior, came on board. I have a great boss. If you haven't met him, you need to. He's really awesome. But there were 19 total men lost at this site. They were running a radar site that would guide aircraft and bombing missions. The North Vietnamese commandos attacked this site. Fortunately, 8 men were able to be rescued. However, 11 men died on that mountaintop, that peak. Pupati was one of the most treacherous areas for us to get back into, largely because it was heavily mined. It was, I think, 5,600 feet. Very difficult to get to. We were finally able to build not only a path to hike up, but also a landing zone to land helicopters to get our teams in. And so the identification of Staff Sergeant Gish is nothing short of a miracle that we were able to get those remains. We've gone back a couple of times. In fact, we were back this year. And we have more remains in the lab that are undergoing processing. Don't know if we were able to identify the remaining 10 in addition to Gish. We'll see. Hopefully, we have them all, because again, the theme of this briefing is, will we be able to go back? Who knows? Next slide. This next slide is the one that I showed earlier if you were in the big group. This is another example of the great work of not just DPAA, but our partners as well. This was a foreign partner that took care of us and helped us with our underwater recovery of these individuals that were recently identified. So I'm not going to go into details about this because most of the detail is right there on the slide, because I want to give us time to have a chat and for me to answer some questions. So that concludes everything that I have to present to you today. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening. Again, I always enjoy coming to DAV, especially this group, because you guys get us, and I appreciate that. And you always ask great questions. And so I just ask that you continue to pray for us, pray for our teams. Again, the easy cases are done, and so many of the places that we go to are pretty treacherous. In fact, we just did one more. I've got so many vignettes in my head. Off the coast of Vietnam, we were going after a Chinook, and we had to redeploy our divers. They were doing chamber dives, so when they came up, they'd have to come into the decompression dive chamber. And there was an explosion on the island in Vietnam, not the island, it was in the country off the coast of Vietnam, and it caused some percussive damage and impact to our divers, and so we had to get them out of the water quickly. They're okay, thank goodness, but the missions that we're conducting, they're not easy. That's all I have. I'll pause there. Thank you.
Would you take some questions first?